Cool. We're now going. Linda, if you want to kick us off.
So it's very strange not being able to see the carers, but welcome whoever's there. And it's really nice that you've actually been able to join us for this session. It's really sad that yet again we can't do a face-to-face session, which we were really looking forward to seeing you all. But, you know, it's imperative that we make sure that you particularly stay safe. You'll see on the screen that there's a few new faces that you may not recognise. So Debbie is fairly new to us, and she is our specialist support worker around dementia and mental health. And she's been a great asset since she joined. We've also got another Linda, so we have to call her Lynn so we don't get confused. And Lynn is a specialist support worker for our learning disabilities, physical disabilities, sensory, and older people, is it? Or yeah, so it's been brilliant having Lynn join the team. And we've also been lucky enough to employ Ailish, who is our admin worker that keeps us all under control and makes sure that all the emails, etc., get out to you about these events. And we've also got Jagpal here, who's been with us forever. And I'm sure most of you will have seen her before, but Jagpal does the BAME specialist support work. And Joe in the corner there is our senior coordinator, so he supports me in delivering the service. So it's really lovely that we've been able to do this. Sadly, we've lost Pip in the last couple of weeks, who's done our communications and marketing since the service began about 7 years or more ago. And we have gone out to advert for a replacement. So if any of you there know of anybody or are expert on communications and websites, then look on our website for the job application. One other thing that we've just put on for tomorrow is a Christmas sing-along. So some of you may have come to that last year and it was lovely. And we also invite the MenCap members, so they're in the day service, and then they will join us and sing along. So if you'd like to do that, maybe you could put a message in the chat box and we'll make sure you get the email to invite you. So that's really it should be a really fun session. So that's for carers and their cared fors to join in. We're talking about, when we do eventually get back to face-to-face, perhaps using different venues as well as the Victory Centre. So hopefully, you'll feel comfortable going to other venues. So we'll try and make it so that they're perhaps a bit more accessible, because Portswood isn't very straightforward for everybody to get to. One of the things that we're aware of is that this time of year, everybody's finding things extremely expensive. So we can refer to the food bank for you. We can refer to household support grant. And there's a lot of information on our website for how to reduce your bills and money and benefit sections. So please have a look at that. When we put on these sessions, they are funded. So I will be posting you out, or Ailish maybe will be posting you out a form for you to sign to say that you attended. Christmas is obviously looming. We're going to have a telephone service between Christmas and New Year. So if you need to speak to anybody, please call the number and either somebody will answer it or they will dial in and pick up the message and get back to you. So, and then we're back to normal from the 4th of January. So I think you've probably heard enough from me. Joe, would you like to introduce Nick, and then we can start the session?
Thanks, Linda. Yes, so just before I introduce Nick, I'm just going to quickly say again, I put it in the chat, but we are recording this session so that people who are unable to join us live today will be able to watch it back. I'll be popping it on the website in the next couple of days, so it will be on there. You've mentioned the sing-along event that's going to be tomorrow. We'll be sending out some invites for that for our mailing list, so that'll be coming out later this afternoon, and that'll have a Zoom link for it. We will have the cameras on for the Christmas sing-along, so wear your best Christmas jumpers and join us for a sing-sing. As I say, it is being recorded. Your cameras are off, so we can see you, but you can see us, pardon me, but we can't see you. Any questions, please pop in the chat and I will relay to the relevant person as we're going along. I think that's everything. And if you want to pop your favourite Christmas song in the list, Deborah has contributed a couple, and I've watched some. I've just seen a message. So yeah, we're not having cameras on for this session, so we kind of recorded. So it's just a webinar, so you can see us, but we can't see you. I've just had an email from one of the attendees about that. Right, without further ado, I would like to pass over to Nick Mabey from the Mindful Life. Nick is going to talk us through a mindfulness session about what the Mindful Life, pardon me, offer. Carers in Southampton staff, can I ask you to turn your cameras off so that Nick is just the only person on screen. Nick, I'm gonna make you host, and I'm gonna hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's a strange experience because I'm going to end up talking to myself here, but I'm hoping you're all listening. And I think this session is as much is for you carers, but also for people who work in carers in Southampton, because what Joe and I agreed that it would be useful to tell you a bit about what we offer. So I'm going to do 5 things. I'm going to tell you about the story of how we got to where we did and how I find myself sitting in front of you. Then we're going to have a practice of what mindfulness meditation actually is. And that's going to be slightly weird because you're all going to be doing that on your own, but I'll be guiding you. And then I'll go through a bit of a description of the details of what mindfulness is and the benefits and that sort of stuff. And then we'll have another practice. And then the final thing was I'll tell you how you can access us and how you can get help. Between each of these 5 sections, I'll just see if there's any questions, either written on the chat or probably written in the chat. But if any of the carers and Southampton staff want to ask one, they've obviously got their mics they can use. So let me start with a story. So 13 years ago now, I got taught how to meditate. And it was all a bit weird because I'd never heard of mindfulness. It was before mindfulness has become more popular. It's now used around education and doctors prescribe mindfulness. So it's much more popular now. But back when I was taught, it was all seen as a bit weird. And then having been taught, I immediately found some benefit in a daily practice. And the main benefit I got was that I slept better. I was someone who struggled with sleep, and now I sleep better. And so I became a fan of mindfulness. And together with my teacher, we decided to form a social enterprise called the Mindful Life. And we formed a social enterprise with 3 of us, actually. And we basically, up until 2016, what we did is we just taught people to meditate. And we taught anyone who wanted our help. And then in 2016, we decided to do something different because the world had become much more familiar with mindfulness, and we were a very small charity working in a very big world. We decided we'd formalize our offer around one particular section of the community, and that particular section of the community we focused on was carers. And we did that for 2 reasons. One was in the area we were working, we were basically down in the southwest Bristol way. We were working already with a lot of carers, so we had good access to those groups. And by carers, I mean unpaid carers, as opposed to the professional caring services. And so we just started doing our work there. And the second reason is because we realized the people we were working with were getting a lot out of it. And I know this is probably generalizations, but generally the carers we were working with were short on free time, needed to look after themselves so that they could look after others, needed to do it in a flexible and fluid way, needed to be able to access benefits without having to spend a whole lot of time. And the other thing we wanted was to make the service free, because a number of carers, money was tight, and prioritizing spending on yourself wasn't always easy. So we decided that we would take a funding model, which means we go to corporate sponsors to fund this work so that we can offer it free to you guys. So that's what we did. We started in 2016. We were still very much based in the Southwest, and we were doing all our work face to face. And we were running sort of day-long sessions or half-day sessions. And then something called COVID came along, and we had to move online immediately. And the strange thing is that moving online in a way has opened things up for us, because, of course, now we don't have to focus on a geographical area. We have found that the services we offer now, people from all over the country, and in fact, a couple of people from outside of the country are taking up. It's still free, and in fact, it's easier for it to be free now because online is much cheaper than running an in-person session. But we are now available to anyone who wants to use us, who is a carer in some capacity. That led us to here. I live in Southampton, and when I'm not doing this, one of the other things I do is I volunteer in Southampton Hospital, and I happened to be up on G ward a couple of months ago, and I saw a banner for you guys, carers in Southampton, and I thought, well, why don't we tell you about what we do? And that led me to making contact first with Pip, then with Joe, and that's how I find myself here. And so we are here today really just to tell you a bit more about what mindfulness is, what meditation is, how it works in relation to carers, what we offer, and we hope you get something from it. Anyone got any questions before I get started? I'm quite happy to pause in the nothingness just for a second, see if anything comes up on the chat. Or
no questions in the chat just yet, Nick. If anything comes through, I will let you know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll carry on. So before I get into descriptions of what we're talking about, I thought it'd be a good idea to have you experience this. So I recognize this is going to be called what's slightly weird for some of you. For others, you may already have some experience of this, but I'm going to take you through a guided meditation. It's not going to take long. I'll use a bell to get us started and a bell to stop. And this is to give you an actual physical experience of what I'm talking about. Before we get started, just to give you a few tips. The first thing to do is see if you can sit with your feet planted on the ground, as opposed to scrunched up under you or swinging free. See if you can get your feet on the ground. Secondly, in terms of your posture, you want to be comfortable, but you want to be comfortable in a sort of upright sense of the word. So you try and get your bottom to the back of whatever seat you're on, and try and get your spine straight and aligned with your hips. And so you've got a position that isn't like a military, erect sitting position, but it is slightly more formal than your normal seated position. So it's just got a little bit of strength in the core and a bit of uprightness to it. That's the second thing. The third thing is I'd encourage you to get your hands out of the way. So put them in a position where they're not going to disturb you. So that could be on your lap. You might just put them on your legs, down by your side. You might clasp them in a way that feels very comfortable. The main thing is they're not distracting you. And the fourth thing then is what to do with your eyes, because the eyes are the great stimulator of the brain. And so I'm going to encourage you either to close your eyes, and if you don't feel comfortable doing that, the other alternative is for you to lower your gaze and soften your focus. So you're looking out of eyes that are slightly out of focus, down at something that isn't stimulating you, some carpet or something in front of you. And now we're getting ourselves ready to start. So having got yourself in position, I'm going to bell you in to a short guided meditation on breathing. I'd like you to start by paying attention to your breath as it comes in and goes out of your body. What we're doing here is simply paying attention to your normal breathing. So you don't have to change your breathing, just breathe normally, but pay attention to the air coming into your nose and going back out. Try and hold your attention on a particular aspect of your breath coming in. And one thing you might notice is your mind wants to go off. Your mind might be thinking about what's for lunch, or what you're doing next, or judging you and saying, what on earth are you doing this crazy thing for? The key thing to do at these moments where your mind wanders is not to punish yourself or criticize yourself, but simply notice where it went and then bring it back to the breathing. So you're paying full attention to your breathing. And if your mind goes, just bring it back. And that's all that's required. Another way you may pay attention to your breathing is noticing where your breath goes and how your body moves when it comes in. So just pay attention to any movement in your body as you breathe. Be in the throat or the chest or even the shoulders. Be a very subtle movement. Just pay full attention. Again, if your mind wanders, you can almost smile at it, because that's what minds are built for. Creative, meaning-making machines. Just smile at it and then turn your attention back to your breath. So that's a first sort of experience of the thing we're talking about. I wanted you to have that because it's not easy to describe what it is to meditate. What I'd really like to do at this point, and it might be impossible, I'd really like to get some feedback on how you found that. So I'm going to say a little bit more about it, what we just did. And while I'm doing it, if anyone's got any feedback to offer on how they found that, whether they found that relaxing, irritating, a waste of time, anything would be good for feedback, because we can build on feedback. While we're waiting for that to come in, just to say that focusing on the breath is one of the most basic meditation techniques. And the reason for that is that breathing is predictive and requires no concentration at all. So we breathe about 20,000 times a day, and we don't have to work at it. In fact, it's harder to try not to breathe than it is to breathe. So when we're looking to calm our mind down, if we focus on things that are predictable, regular, and require no effort, then we're more likely to calm our mind down. And that's why we choose breathing. And whenever I meditate, no matter what I end up doing, I always start and finish with my breath as a way in and a way out of the work. There's some people in some of the ancient traditions, that's all they do. They sit and watch their breath for 20 years. And frankly, that would drive me mad. But it just shows you the power that is in a very simple thing, which is focus your attention on this thing that we do automatically every day, 20,000 times. And that's why we start with breathing. Right, we're getting a bit of feedback. That's good.
You see the chat, Nick?
Yeah, I'm reading it as we go.
Cool. I'd just like to say, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I saw what someone said about falling asleep, and I was the same. I could have very easily done that, very easily fallen asleep in my chair, but I kept having to bring myself back into the room with one eye to kind of check the chat to see if anyone was putting any comments. I'm really pleased to see that people have put some comments in. I think you're right. I don't think I could spend 20 years concentrating on my breathing, because it was kind of hard enough to do it for sort of a couple of minutes. But it was. I do feel calmer.
Yeah.
For me personally, I feel calmer. I can feel that my sort of general demeanour has dropped down a little bit. Do you want to respond to some of the chats in the comments?
Yeah, let me talk to some of these stats. I'll go through them in the order. I mean, the thing about the finding it hard, and we call it mindfulness practice, but it's not like practice like I don't know, like snooker practice or tennis practice. It's not a practice where you necessarily get it better at it. It's a practice in the sense that you just turn up and do it. And so the idea that it will be, some days it will feel like you're in a state of flow, and other days it will just feel like really gravelly and difficult. And I think the thing to do is not to be caught up in any of that. And attached to that, Deborah's comment was about the pain increase. Now, in mindfulness, what we would encourage you to do, and this is what some of we teach in the charity, is if you notice physical pain, is to turn your attention towards it. And so rather than focus on the breathing, to actually focus your attention on the physical pain. Now, that's slightly further advanced for this taster session. We won't be doing something on that. But I would encourage you, if you notice pain when you're meditating, is just to simply turn your attention to the source of the pain. And I had it happen yesterday in a session I ran where two people who did that noticed they got a shift in that pain. Now, I'm not pretending this is magic or that it can cure chronic pain, but there is something more to be said about focusing your attention on it. Yeah, so it can be hard to do to get started, but I would just encourage you to have a compassionate mind towards yourself. Just take that on the chin and say, yeah, it's hard, but I'm not going to judge myself, and just keep going. For those of you who immediately got into a sense of falling asleep, that one of the reasons to encourage you to get a more upright position is because sleep comes, and sometimes it's just not helpful for sleep to come. If you're meditating when you want to go to sleep and you know it's a good way in, then that's a fantastic thing. But other times, if you just want 2 or 3 minutes in between two busy tasks you've got to do, get yourself in an upright position so that you stay attentive and don't drift away into sleep.
I find it really hard to do that. And I think when I do meditations, I like the talking meditations that talk you through a process, because it keeps you present but relaxed enough. Because that kind of meditation, I think, I love silence, and once you find a silence, it's very refreshing. And I embrace it very, very gratefully. So I enjoy that silence, but it does make me sleep.
Yeah, and when I first started, thanks for saying that, Linda. When I first started, I wanted to sleep better. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. And it's actually a great way, if you're somebody who struggles to get to sleep, is rather than counting sheep, is just meditate for a while and you increase your chances. I think for the thing about when that's not possible, finding guided meditation sometimes does help with focus. And we, on the website of our charity, we've got some You can get Headspace. There's a load of apps and stuff you can get for guided meditation. Me personally, I quite like silence, but there are other times where I want to work on something particular, where a guided meditation, one that I like, really does help. Marion, I really like your comment about it's strange because you don't normally have long enough to notice your breathing. The thing I'd encourage is actually, once you get into a bit of a practice rhythm, you don't need long. Even if you take 30 seconds or a minute just to tune in and center in, that will be of some help to you. Thank you for saying it's good to have a male voice. It is all of the other people in the charity I work in are women, and so I do know I'm a bit of a novelty in this world, and I don't mind that at all. So thank you for recognizing that, Richard. What else have I got? Yes, the idea about getting yourself warm, again, it's a bit like I said with your posture, warm enough so that you're not just shivering your way through, but not so warm that you just go fuzzy headed and want to curl up in a ball, is a good thing. And for music, I'm personally not a fan, but I know a lot of people do get a lot of relaxation out of meditating to music. And so again, I'd encourage you to have something that helps you to stay present. In fact, it's a good segue into a definition of mindfulness, which I'll get to in a moment. I'm just going to answer Linda's question. Assisting getting to sleep. No, I generally, if I'm trying to improve my sleep, I will at some point in the evening, just before bed, I like to get rid of all the technology a little while before I go to bed. So because that's a stimulus. So I'm knocking away stimuluses. I might sit for a couple of minutes before I go to bed just to calm myself down, then lie in bed, and then again some more. I like to read, but then after I read, just having a couple of minutes of tuning inwards is enough. So it's little and often, I would say, during the evening, stripping out as much stimulation as possible, and then just taking 2 or 3 minutes before and then when you lie down. The definition that we work with in the charity is might be of help to you here. So I'm moving us on a bit now with this.
Just before we move on, Nick, sorry, I just wanted to relay one more comment. I'm not sure if you can see the Q&A. I just had a comment from John, which is, he says, thank you very much for leading that. And he says, just to take the time to not worry and be occupied with the many thoughts that are with me is a beautiful place.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that in Q&A, but that is actually a beautiful description of what actually is at the heart of what we're trying to do here. The idea is that you spend your time in service of others. And so we're looking for very accessible methods that don't take a lot of time, don't take a lot of effort, don't take any money, where you can look after yourself. And so these short moments of paying attention to yourself will nourish you. And I'm going to explain why. And I'll do that now, I think. So the definition of mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, which is the way I'm describing. Doing it on purpose, so having an intention to pay attention. Staying in the present moment, which means not about going into a headspace about what I was up to yesterday or what's coming up later today. Staying in the present moment, which generally means not thinking, but actually feeling. And then not being judgmental. So whatever happens when you start, not to analyze it or judge it or criticize it. So it's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. That's simply what mindfulness is. And why is it important? Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. If you'll indulge me for 5 minutes, I'll tell you the story of the Sabretooth tiger. And the reason I tell the story is because even though we're now advanced human beings, our biological wiring is still as it was when we lived in caves. And so that means we have two systems running in our body. a sympathetic nervous system, which isn't very sympathetic, so I don't know why it's called that, which is your stress-based system, and a parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest system. And we all have this. And in the sympathetic nervous system, the stress system, we are generating adrenaline and cortisol. And in the parasympathetic nervous system, we are discharging adrenaline and cortisol. And this is our human wiring, and the human wiring that we've evolved, or rather haven't evolved, we've inherited from our predecessors. So imagine, if you will, a lifestyle of a man living in a cave, or a woman, but particularly a man in this case. Life broadly was lounging around. So we were hunter-gatherers. We go out and do some stuff, and we spend a lot of time lounging around. What would invoke, and that would be in our parasympathetic nervous system. And by the way, I'm not being historically accurate, I'm sure, here. If any of you are ancient history students, please don't put me right. This is dramatic effect. We're in our parasympathetic system, lounging around, discharging any adrenaline and cortisol in our system. Might paint a bit of a wall, but otherwise not doing much. Suddenly a saber-toothed tiger appears outside the cave. Immediately, even before we think saber-toothed tiger, our body switches from parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system. We generate massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol to power our muscles. Our breathing gets shallower and higher up. And we immediately, even though we don't consciously choose, we immediately occupy one of three states: fight, flight, or freeze. And you may have heard of some of this. So at that moment, our body, not our brain, is deciding, is this animal someone I'm going to fight? Is it someone I'm going to try and run away from? Or is it someone I'm going to play dead and hope they move off? And at that moment, our muscles are filling up with adrenaline and cortisol. And then generally, we're programmed for about 20 minutes worth of sympathetic nervous system, where we take action. And assuming we don't get eaten, we successfully either fight it, run away from it, or play dead. And then we go back to parasympathetic nervous system, and we discharge all of that any unused adrenaline and cortisol. So that was what we're wired for. Long periods of a day of rest and digest, and short periods of a day of high intensity stress. Now compare that to a modern lifestyle. In a modern lifestyle, the good news is there's very few saber-toothed tigers prowling around Southampton. And so we don't get the massive bursts of stress that our predecessors would have had. But what we do get is a constant drip, drip, like a leaking tap of stress. We're not resting and digesting for long periods. We are basically in a slow, low drip, drip, drip of sympathetic nervous system, which means we are building up chemicals in our bodies, and we're not having time to discharge them. The consequence of that is they sit around, and unused adrenaline and cortisol isn't good news, because it starts to have an impact on us. It starts to cause us to be more fractious. It can have problems with short-term memory. It creates issues with sleep. It starts to sort of melt away some of the neural connections that give us empathy. Generally not good news. So you can see a lifestyle, and it's sadly it is a modern lifestyle with a slow, low level of drip, 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 a creation of adrenaline and cortisol, and not enough time to discharge it. So in response to that, there's one of the easiest ways of discharging those drugs that you create, chemicals that you create in your body, is through mindfulness meditation. And they've done research, the Neuro Institute in America, working with the Dalai Lama, actually, about 20 years ago, when as soon as brain scans became mainstream, did some research where they taught people to meditate and then watch the impact it had on their brains. And broadly speaking, it had a very good impact. 20 minutes a day for 8 weeks, which is what most mindfulness courses are based on. 20 minutes a day for 8 weeks is enough to get your brain rewiring in a way that creates more, less triggering, less short-term memory issues, more empathic resonance, and higher immunity. So all in all, a good deal. The only other thing that's ever been studied that has a similar effect is voluntary sport activity. Some voluntary sport activity, and I say voluntary in the sense that you wholeheartedly want to be doing it, not you're doing it because you know it's good for you. But voluntary sport activity has a similar benefit. And so that's broadly why we think mindfulness is of great benefit. Now, even 20 minutes a day is tough for you guys. So what we've designed on our course is much shorter, sharper, 5 minutes here, a couple of minutes there. And the idea that you don't have to meditate. So some people wash up mindfully. And the difference between washing up normally and washing up mindfully is very simple. In mindful washing up, all you do is pay attention to the washing up. So you just practice the focus of your attention being on the thing you're doing. I don't know what some of you are like, but I can be, when I'm doing a task, my head can be anywhere. I could be reliving last night's telly. I could be planning this evening's tea. I could be doing absolutely anything. And what mindfulness suggests is whatever the task, if you pay attention to the task while you're doing it, you become very present to it, then your body will react by calming itself down. And when that happens, you're in good shape. I think I've probably said enough. I've talked about the benefits really. You're calmer, so you're better with other people. You have more energy. You can sleep better. I feel like a snake oil salesman now. So all of this is not for everyone, but it's all there and available.
Don't talk too much about snake oil because that's our next speaker.
Oh,
so so they're going to come along. Nick, I'll bring some of the carers in Southampton team in, and perhaps we could sort of see if there's any questions that people want to ask. Would that be okay? Yeah. Any questions? So I've already seen something here, haven't I? So I've got does environment play a part, for example, at home or in a forest? Can I just respond to that one while? Yeah, of course. I'll need to do a bit in the background.
Yeah. The thing I'd say about that is that we have a sort of idealized view of what perfect meditation is, where we're sort of sat in a sunlit forest, cross-legged, beautiful surroundings, perhaps a bit of bird song in the background. And that's great. And if that was available, that would clearly be a wonderful experience. But life doesn't seem to be like that for many of us. And so for me, anywhere do. If there's noise, if the washing machine's going, so be it. If the dog is restless and wandering around, so be it. Just the important thing is the practice. You can do this anywhere. You don't have to shut your eyes. You don't even have to sit. You can become more mindful in any environment. It does play a part. Of course, it will play a part. But what we work on is the idea that the environment isn't suitable. We'll still do the work, even if it's not playing its part. Right, I probably said too much about that.
Do you have a talking meditation that you do with the mindful life, that people that could add a link to their diaries or something? Going back a couple of years ago, I used to do one like every Thursday morning, and it's something you look forward to, and it's getting people into the habit of actually meditating, because lots of people don't know how to meditate. It's actually training yourself how to relax as well.
We do. We do. We run two. I was going to say this later, but I'll say it now. We run training, which is a taster session and a which is a taster session is a bit like this, and then a 3-session course which teaches, and then we run a couple of sessions a week. One's on a Tuesday afternoon, one's on a Wednesday evening, I think. But we can where we do live stuff, so you're on with other people, and you get to meditate together, which is always very good. And then there are a variety of apps where you can set up your own regular stuff. We can help you do all that when we get started.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I move us on?
I've got a quick question. Just I've done some mindfulness in the past, and one of the things I've always sort of struggled with, one of the things I've always kind of used is I've used it a bit of a fallback default if I'm feeling stressed.
Yeah.
So, you know, if something, you know, if there's a sort of stressful situation at work or something kind of comes into my inbox, I think, oh yeah, that's going to cause me grief in the long run. And I tend to do it reactionary, as a kind of reactive instance to what's happened. So, you know, let's say, for example, you know, stressful email, sit, and I tend to do sort of guided ones on YouTube or something, and then do it, and that's kind of fine, and then that kind of brings me down, and I sort of feel calmed. But then afterwards, I sort of tend to go back up again. That only tends to be, you know, do you think it's worth perhaps me, you know, say, you know, rather than doing it, we're actually trying to do it more regularly?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, what you're doing is obviously helping, so there's no harm in it. But what I'd suggest is that a regular practice would stop the email triggering you, or more likely to stop the email triggering you in the first place. So I often think of a good visual example is driving. You know, like people get really angry if they get cut up or something goes wrong on the road. And at that moment, you've got to keep driving. So you can tune in a bit and sort of calm yourself down and breathe, but you've got to keep driving. Now, if in a practice, it meant that the next time someone cut up, you were able to not get a trigger response, not immediately blam the horn or flash the lights, but at that moment, have a moment of thought that said, that person, perhaps they're in a rush, you know, find a little gap between the action of the cutting up and the reaction of your body going like that. If you can create a gap in that, then you don't generate the adrenaline and cortisol in the first place, and therefore you don't need to then calm yourself down. Do you see the difference?
I do, yeah. I think that driving example is a really good example, because we're so predisposed almost, especially when we're driving. I think all of us who drive know that we do respond perhaps as we shouldn't do when someone does do something. And as you say, you know, someone might not be a very confident driver, or
there's 100 reasons why
there's 100 reasons exactly why they're not going to do it.
We seem to want to believe that they've done it on purpose to wind
it up. and we go straight to that viewpoint. I think you're right, and I think you know, most of the time, like, as I say, sort of with a kind of work or a social situation, when someone perhaps says something, you know, or an email comes in, it's not intended to heighten your anxiety. It's just someone doing their job. And I think you're right. And perhaps if I do the mindfulness more regularly, I won't, if my level's kind of here, I won't go straight to here. Whereas
or it'll take more to get you there.
Yeah,
that's the idea. And if you think about it in terms of it's your body is reacting to a threat to safety. Imagine the saber-toothed tiger. What you've got to do is you're training yourself not to believe there's saber-toothed tigers around every corner. And so if you can not see someone else's driving as a threat to yourself, you know, in some way. Now, obviously, if you jump out in the middle of the road and there's a truck, you need your sympathetic nervous system. You need your muscles powered to get out of the way quick. And so we don't want calm people if there is a real threat, but we want people to be able to discern between what's a real threat and what is just our wiring, imagining there's a threat. I've got another question just come up. Can any conditions or sensory impairments affect the quality of mindfulness? And are there any top tips to share with those we care for to carry out a mindfulness session together? That's a brilliant question. That's actually quite hard for me to, let me just get to it. I don't know of any specific impairments that affect the quality of mindfulness. I'm trying to think, and I can't think of any. I think the biggest risked quality of mindfulness is self-judgment and self-criticism. The idea that I'm not very good at this is bigger than an actual physical impairment. As for the second half of your question, any tips for the people you're caring with? That's I think there is something about very social about meditating together. So I would encourage you, in fact, a few of the people who take part in our sessions bring along the person they're caring for, and they join in as well. So I'd encourage you not to make it a private thing or something you only do on your own, but at the minimum to talk about this is for me, but you might get some benefit as well, and perhaps to not make it hidden or secret, to involve them. And then if there is some interest from the people you're caring for, then you might might be a certain guided meditation that you both really like to do together. I would just experiment and explore, but the main thing is to normalize it. This is just something for me that helps me, stay energized and nourished through the day, which means I'm of more service to you. And then if you're interested, we could talk about it some more, or we could practice together. I feel like I waffled that answer a bit, but shall I move us on? Let's.
I just want to add one bit to that. Even doing a mindfulness, you can adapt it with people with severe learning disabilities, because if you think of a multi-sensory room, so somebody might not have the capacity to say, well, I need you to sit here, empty your mind, breathe in, breathe out, but you can create a really good, mindful, peaceful environment. So, I've actually done it myself. You can do the meditation, but you can create a safe, calm environment for the person that you're caring for within that, like, with bubble tubes and, gentle music, things like that. It doesn't have to be silent, but you can create the atmosphere and the environment to do that with the person you're caring for. And it can actually calm them down.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Linda. That's really helpful. And it is I think the biggest impediment to mindfulness is self-criticism and self-judgment, and so I think it's worthy of just saying that will come. It's almost certain that there's something in our human DNA about competitiveness and about achievement focus that says that in doing such a simple task and apparently not doing it as it's described, and having our minds interfere with it, that invokes something that's not really helpful. So it's just to be aware of all of that, as Deborah said earlier, just to notice when you start to criticize yourself or judge yourself in any of this, because it'll just wrap you up and take you away from what you're trying to do. It's called a monkey mind, I think I've heard it explained as. Our minds are busy, and if we still them, they want to be busy again. And so we need to work with that. Okay, let me try one more thing as an experience. So let's get back to the bell and an experience of mindfulness, slightly different. We'll start with breathing, but then it's called grounding, this next one. I'll guide you again. So again, I get you to get your feet on the floor, your bottom pushed back as far as it can to create an upright spine. Your hands not distracting. And then finally, I'd ask you to either close your eyes or lower your gaze and soften your focus. And away we go. So start by noticing your breath coming in and going out of your body. Just turn your attention fully towards the experience of breathing, the sensation of breathing. Just breathe normally and notice it. Notice the air coming in and out. Again, your mind's probably already wandered once or twice. That happens, that's fine. It's what minds do. Just let it go and go back to your breath. Now I'd like you to move your attention away from your breath, and I'd like you to place your full attention on the connection between the bottom of your feet and the surface below. Just turn your attention now to the bottom of your feet and the contact, perhaps through socks or shoes or slippers, contact with the surface below. Just feel the solidity of your feet on the ground. Really tune into that sensation of feet on surface. Now move your attention to any contact between the backs of your legs and the seat you're sat on. Might be calves. Almost certainly is going to be the backs of your thighs. Just tune into the contact. Between your body and the seat. Might expand that to include your sitting bones, your bottom, your lower back. Just notice the sensation of sitting on the seat, whatever it is. Now turn your attention back to your breath. Just notice if your breath's moved. This grounding exercise is designed to make you feel more solid in yourself, more ready for the world, more grounded. And your breathing may become lower or slower, lower in your body, down into your belly. I notice it slow down slightly. It's really strange for me to do this without seeing people. I have no idea if you're all falling asleep now. While it'd be, again, interesting to get any feedback that any of you have got on that. Let me just explain a bit about grounding. So if you think of your breathing as a barometer, you can tell how relaxed you are by where you breathe. So if you're breathing in the throat or the very top of your chest, that's a sign that you've got the stress system going on. That's you ready to run away or to fight or whatever. If you can get your breathing to move south, down through your chest, diaphragm, and into your belly, that's a sign you're invoking rest and digest. And so that, if you imagine that barometer and you just tune into where your breathing is, that'll tell you your status. And then if you flip into grounding, which is what we did, noticing the surface, against the floor, against your legs. If you spend some time on that and then go back to your breathing, you should notice your barometer dropping. And you can, if you've got the time, you may have to go back 2 or 3 times, focus on your feet, focus on that solidity, and then go see what it does to your breathing. So grounding is a way of helping you arrive. And in the worlds that you live in, it's quite handy if you've got yourself, if you're about to face into something difficult, or in, as Joe said, if you've just experienced something difficult and now you're trying to get yourself back into a good shape. Grounding combined with the breathing is just a very simple way of doing it. I'm sorry, I almost sent someone to sleep again then, but that's good. And yes, you will notice, I'm pretty confident, even though I don't believe in the magic of all of this, I'm pretty confident that the more you focus on grounding, you will notice your breathing get lower and slower and deeper. And that's broadly a very good news story, because that is about your body is now relaxing, and which means your body is digesting and it is discharging those chemicals that have been dripping into you all day when you've been doing all the hundreds of things you have to do in a day. That's what we're looking for, really. It's as simple as that. The final thing I wanted to say to you is how to get access to us. So I've sent Joe a simple pro forma. All we need really is your name, an email address, and a phone number, and we will just start inviting you to the things we do. And we don't sell any of your contact details to anyone, and we don't contact you with any other reason than to tell you what we're up to. We'd encourage you to start with one of the training courses rather than just to come to one of our standard meditations. They're 3 sessions of about an hour, all online, of course. And we run those through the year, but you don't have to do that. If you feel confident, you come and just join our meditation sessions. But we just need your contact details, and we give you a promise we don't do anything with them. We may go back to face-to-face once the world has landed back on its axis after COVID. And given that I live in Southampton, I'd be quite happy once we get back to face-to-face to coming along to face-to-face sessions like we were going to do today, and running proper training for you, if that's what you wanted, either as a group or if there are enough of you individually to make it worthwhile doing. But otherwise, the online offer is always there, and we're going to carry on even when we get post-COVID. We are going to carry on with the online offer because it's been a success for us. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to quickly say thank you for that session, Nick. I've really enjoyed it. I really believe in the benefit of mindfulness. As I say, it's something that I believe in the benefit of, but I'm very conscious of that I don't do enough. And it's something that I always say to myself, I'm going to find some time to do it, during the week or weekends, and don't actually go by. I do feel, we live increasingly stressful lives, and lots of our carers have lots of very stressful situations that they're a part of, and I think it's a really great way to bring your senses down and to feel so calm. One of the things I was just going to sort of comment, I always find quite interesting with grounding, it's just a silly thing that I just wanted to share. I never realized how conscious of my own connection to the floor I am when I've done a couple of grounding exercises. When you say, think of your connection to your floor, and you think of your feet against the carpet, or wherever you're sat, and when you do stop and take that moment to actually think about your connection to the floor, you suddenly become so conscious of the feeling of the carpet against your feet, whether your feet are cold, whether they're a bit dry, whether the carpet's comfortable against what you're doing. And I always went, and that always, when I've done grounding before, that kind of first steps always sort of stopped me excuse the pun, in my tracks. So I'm always like, oh, okay, that's how it feels. And that's how my legs feel against my chair. And that's how my breathing feels going into body. Because we're so on all the time, we just don't think of those things when we're going about, it's incredible.
The training course we offer, the 3-session course, is purposely designed for people who are time poor. So we've got very short spaces of time. So we're not talking about large investments of time. We're talking about practices and ways of doing things that a minute here, a couple of minutes there. That's what's needed, and that will be enough to get you going. So yeah, really agree with that.
Linda's got a question. Linda, I've turned your camera on, so you can turn your camera on now, Linda, and I can see you put your hand up.
Okie doke. Hello. I find that quite difficult to actually stop my mind going shooting off to 1,000 different things. And, I'm sure for the carers amongst the group, I think that they probably find it quite difficult to do, particularly this, we're in a difficult time for carers with basically, I guess a lot of the people they care for aren't going out so much. So the stress levels are probably higher and the demands on them are higher. I like the idea of paying attention to the task. So when you talked about washing up, actually concentrating on the washing up, could you give a couple more examples of things that are more likely to work? So washing up.
The biggest one I'd always advocate for is mindful eating. So how many people, while they're eating their lunch, are working or watching the telly or reading or doing something, and suddenly the food's gone and you didn't really notice it? It's just become fuel. It's like going to a petrol station. And so eating is a joyous thing, which we all have to do. And we already allocate the time for doing it. So eating, I would always advocate. I'm a particular fan of washing up myself because it's quite sensory. So whatever your version of that, I don't know if people have, gardening is always good if you've got because you're working with nature, and there's actually much more in soil and flowers and plants than we realize until we really get up close and personal. I walk sometimes. I have various walks. One walk is when I want to solve a problem, and then I let my head go off wherever it needs to go to solve the problem. But sometimes I go, no, in this walk, I'm just going to pay attention to the where I'm walking, the sights and sounds going on around me. I think it's sort of endless, really. If you've got the old-fashioned non-duvet bed, sheets and blankets, getting those nice, getting the folds in your sheets and stuff, making a bed, any task really can be the benefit. The thing I would say, the first thing you said, Linda, that I would say is yes, it is incredibly difficult, not just for carers in this time. It's incredibly difficult for us to calm our mind. The thing that stops people practicing is because of this self-judgment. They go, I can't calm my mind, therefore this is a waste of time, therefore I'm rubbish, I'm not going to do it. But even the act of, and one of the things we teach on the course, even the act of being able to notice where your mind is going, just being able to notice that it's going there rather than you've been blindly taken there is part of a practice. Anything else?
I think there was a couple of comments in the chat box as well, Nick.
Yeah, Richard, yes. Sport, the great winner. And great that you want to take this stuff forward. We're there, and we're not selling anything because we don't charge. We offer it, we know it works. Yeah, so if it's for you, just come and give it a go. You'll find just fellow spirits trying to find their way through this stuff. I think that's all I've got to say.
So I don't know if the carers amongst us would like to put a little message or a yes in the chat box if we'd like to organise another session with Nick where hopefully we can do face-to-face, because That's always good. And, you know, obviously the fact that you're offering this free to carers is absolutely amazing. So maybe they could join into your online sessions, and then we could organise something perhaps in the spring
clear of this stuff.
You know, so there's lots of yeses coming in, so thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. And obviously you've got a recording, so I guess you've got other people who haven't made today who will watch later. And so what I've said is I've given Joe a form, which if he gets interest, if he could just, you know, give it a week or so, Joe, before Christmas, and then let us know what you've got, and we'll be in touch in the new year.
Absolutely, Nick. Thank you. And Nick, can you just let everyone know the address of your website?
Oh yeah, I'll do that here, shall I? Can I do that to everyone, can't I? Yeah, I'll do that now.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, Linda. I completely agree, and I can see that quite a few yeses have come in, which is really good news. And I don't know if thank you, Nick, if any of the team at Carers in Southampton, how you guys would feel about a sort of face-to-face session. And I mean, certainly it was a very difficult decision for us last week, wasn't it, Linda, when we made the call to go virtual with what's going on. It's a real shame because we have been desperately looking forward to seeing everyone. We had a lot of RSVPs, people to kind of come by. We were going to be back over at the Victory Centre and doing our session. And when we first spoke to Nick, that was the plan. And see if I say it's right, Omicron. Everyone seems to have a different pronunciation of it. When I watch the news, there seems to be variations going around. Has come along and sort of obviously kick to kind of get together into the stands. But hopefully in the new year, when things are better and go through to the normal world, we can have a face-to-face session. And yeah, what we'll do is I've got the form, and you can email us, contact us on our phone number. So our email is inquiries, ENQUIRIES @carersInSouthampton.co.uk, or you can telephone us 02380 582 387, or you can WhatsApp us now. I don't have the number to hand, so if anyone Ailish wants to jump in with the WhatsApp number, you can text us, and if you're happy for us to pass on your details to Nick and the Mindful Life, we will follow that up and send it over to him. And yeah, I think we'll do it kind of next week and over Christmas as well. We'll give a decent amount of time, and people can come. Does anyone else have any questions or anything they want to put in the chat box, or do any of the Carers in Southampton team want to say anything?
Again, thank you so much, Nick, and thank you to the carers for, you know, all the work that you do to support your families and loved ones. And it is appreciated by our team, and we do work really hard to try and support you in any way we can. If there's anything that you feel we can help you with, don't hesitate to give us a call or WhatsApp us or send us a message on our website. You know, we are here to help. And if anybody's free at Harper's One tomorrow, we're going to have a little sing-a-song again, a Christmas songs, which will, you know, as I said earlier, we'll join in with our MenCap members, and they absolutely loved it last year. So the more the merrier. And obviously anybody in your household, please, if they'd like to join in, you know, sit them on the settee next to you, and we can all have a little Christmas cheer. And we look forward to seeing you all hopefully in the new year. So Ailish, Jagpal's kindly put the WhatsApp number in the chat. So if you use WhatsApp and you want to get back to us, you can send us a WhatsApp number. So yeah. Oh, thank you, Deborah and Richard, everybody. Have a brilliant Christmas, and we'll definitely plan to see you all again soon. Thanks very much, Joe and Nick, for organising this.
Oh, very well. Just quick before we go, I just want to say thanks to everyone for attending. Thank you, team, for coming along. Thank you, Nick, for a really wonderful session. I can see everyone's really enjoyed it. As I say, we have recorded today. It will be going up on the website. So, you know, if you want to do this again, you'll check it. We can check it out. I'll be sending an email out this afternoon with an invite for the Christmas sing along tomorrow. That'll be a sort of different format to this. It'll be a meeting, so you will be on screen. So make sure to wear your Christmas jumpers, as everyone I'm sure has done at home. So please do those tomorrow. But yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Nick. Have a lovely Christmas. We will see you in the new year. Thank you, and thank you for your kind comments. And yeah, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.